Hello, everybody. Good morning. Sorry, my hair's a little bit disheveled and all that jazz, but it is going to be an exciting day. As I said in the other video, I got a tournament tomorrow. I'm doing a 3-day study for the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, and I'm also here making some videos for you early in the morning. So let's talk about what if it is absolutely completely proven that the immense technological advantage the United States developed over most of the world is not completely due to our own efforts, but that we had reverse engineered a lot of things from UFOs. Normally I wouldn't be so in love with that idea because we obviously don't have anti-gravity and death rays and teleportation and things. We can't overtly replicate what many of these objects are claimed to have done and recorded to have done on various sensors. Okay? However, suppose, I would say, for example, if you dropped a cell phone in a Stone Age or medieval society, you would get different results. If you dropped a cell phone into a Stone Age society and somehow they got serviced, let's say there was temporarily a broadcasting station, and they were getting all these images and things, first of all, they could look at the images and say, look at the clothes, look at the bodies, look at what they're eating, look at that, what is that? And you're seeing people eating with forks. That would put ideas in their head, but as soon as the cell phone died, it might just become a sacred object, and it would be a long time before they could make another cell phone. But the things they'd seen and even the structure of it might push them forward. Now, let's say you dropped it off in a medieval society, medieval England, or at the time one of the much more highly advanced Islamic or Indian civilizations that were making great progress in mathematics and science. And even if the cell phone was turned off, by looking at the blend of plastic and metal and the way right angles and circles were put together, I think they would have understood screws, and maybe they would have taken the screws apart, taken the machine apart, and they could have reverse engineered something, but they wouldn't have a functioning cell phone, they wouldn't have internet, they wouldn't have radio. Okay? Or if they saw the images in the cell phone of a TV show or something, they could go a little bit further in reverse engineering everything. They might see a show about jet planes. They wouldn't be able to make a jet plane for any time soon, but they're like, we can fly inside metal. What could do that? They might start investigating kinetic energy. They might develop Newton's laws of motion as canon, earlier. All right? So it's possible that simply by looking at let's call them crashed UAPs, let's call them anomalous vehicles, what have you, that we got broad concepts, but we still haven't completely deciphered the specifics of the technology. Or, if some of the claims are to be believed, actually a group of people did and kept it to themselves, didn't divulge it to the public, and actually shirked their duty, because when this is supposed to have happened, we've had many wars, we've had air wars, we've had dogfights, and none of this was used. Many of the conflicts we were engaged in could have ended far more quickly and decisively with less loss of life on our part, maybe even the enemy part. I mean, think about it. If we had 20 aircraft capable of doing maneuvers like the UAPs, and we simply put cannons on them and Sidewinder missiles, right? We could have got, first of all, incredible military intelligence on the enemy, far better than we had. Second of all, we could have had targeted assaults, like taking out generals, taking out, runways, taking out elected officials far more quickly and efficiently, and decapitating the opponent's leadership in many situations. But none of that manifested. And if it's there and it was never divulged, if the energy was never divulged, energy power generation, and we had to continue polluting and using fossil fuels and fighting wars over them, that's criminal. Okay? So what if we take that as a fact, that our immense technological advantage that we have over most of the world, if not all of the world, and we've had it for quite some time, is due to maybe even just a partial reverse engineering of alien technology. What does this mean for the rest of the world? First of all, it means that many people overseas, many cultures, many nations, particularly those that were colonized at one time and often are still deeply influenced by their former colonial overlords, often have a mentality, a colonial mentality, where they regard some or all aspects of that colonizing group, culture, nation as superior or innately more advantageous than their own. And they're like, well, we need to be more like the colonists, we need to be more like Americans or British or something like that, because that will make us successful. Maybe what made them successful is their capitalistic economy and or their democratic governments. And I want to pause right here and say capitalism is not a form of government. It is a optimization of economic interaction between businesses and government. And capitalism works fine under monarchies. As a matter of fact, capitalism may actually prefer monarchies to democracy, okay? But, if the rest of the world discovers, hey, the reason why they're so great at this and that is because they took it from another culture that's not even theirs, that's not white Americans, that's not Indo-European, that's not necessarily based on capitalism or communism. Wow. Psychologically, that would actually be a huge confidence boost, okay? And that would actually prompt a lot of independent thought and cultural development in those other nations. Secondarily, and I think this is also important, those nations would be initiating their efforts to get a hold of this technology, to get a hold of this information, and if they have them, they would be redoubling them or re-tripling them, okay? And we might see both diplomatic appeals, we might see espionage efforts, or we might see popular cultural efforts, singers, musicians. I mean, quite a lot of people are interested in foreign music, culture, TV shows, shows with subtitles, right? Africa is starting to emerge on social media. Asia, Japan, look at how many people here love anime and K-pop, right? All of those nations, entertainers and creatives might actually on their own approach this topic and become influencers. Here in the U.S., they might liaison and coalesce with our disclosure activists and enthusiasts. See how this works? Okay, personally, if I was African, okay, or if I was from a Middle Eastern country that had been occupied by the British or French, for example, let's say Morocco, let's say Syria, right? I would be like, you know what? What if there's a more African traditional way of looking at this information? What if there is a more Islamic way of looking at this information and deciphering it? Or what if there is a specifically Moroccan, Arab way of looking at it that's not even necessarily tied into the religion of Islam, but into folk culture? Think about it, right? One good thing about diversity in America, many people hate the idea of diversity because they think it's all related to a diversity hire of letting someone inferior into a position just because of the demographic they belong to. But that's not true, folks. Diversity allows people of different viewpoints and orientations to look at the same information, and I guarantee you they will come up with different interpretations that are useful. Okay. Now I also want to say, if the world has that consciousness of, hey, this is just blind luck on your part, or this is something else you acquired from a different culture that you claim as your own. All right. If the world gets that concept, then in many ways they will be less cooperative with us, and in some ways maybe more. This could be an opportunity to say, hey, as we are making this open and transparent to the American public and our scientific community, let's talk to the world and make it more open and transparent to them on the condition that we develop a more cooperation-based world and one less on world domination and force. That's an opportunity, because I guarantee you that this attitude is going to come about. I guarantee you that if you're born in the Caribbean and you have access to this information, you can look at it on the internet. All right? That if you're from Africa, if you're from the Middle East, if you're from Afghanistan, and you hear about this and you know about this, right? I mean, there are still many people in Afghanistan that are highly educated. They just couldn't leave. All right? They're going to want access to this, and they're going to know that there's nothing about them that's incapable of absorbing and learning it. Right? We might as well use this as a uniting issue before it becomes a dividing issue. Alright, folks? That's just my personal thought. This is speculative. I'm not saying this is all fact, but I do believe that it is a fact that if it became known without a doubt that our technological advantage came from reverse engineered alien technology, that it would certainly affect the psychology, mentality, and sociology of many different socio-cultural groups overseas. I hope you have a wonderful day.